This video is about the Beall wood buff. The wood buff system is something that we've been selling for a number of years, and it's been very, very popular. People do have questions about it from time to time, and this video is to answer some of those questions and to show you how best to set it up and to make it work for you. It comes in a package with 3 buffs, compounds, instructions, and an adapter for a motor. And this is the essential buffer. This is what most people have bought up till now. We have some new products, but we'll go into those in a minute. First, I want to talk about this one. Over here on my workbench, I've got the kit out of the bag, and I want to talk a few minutes about the different buffs that we use. This first buff is called the Tripoli Buff, and every ply is linen. It's the hardest buff, and it's the most aggressive. It's used with the Tripoli compound, which is this red material right here. This is number 1. The second buff in the 3-step process is called white diamond buff, and every other ply on it is cotton flannel with linen in between, and it's a little softer than the Tripoli buff. And this is the compound we use for that. This is an aluminum oxide material, and it's much finer than the Tripoli, and it's the second step. The third step is just wax, and for that we use an all cotton flannel buff and pure carnauba wax. Now this doesn't have any polishing capacity at all. It's just simply wax, and this is pure carnauba wax, nothing else in it. We buy this material in a powder form, and we heat it up and melt it and make these nice Tripoli or wax bars out of it. And this is the final step you use when you're doing your buffing process. Incidentally, this carnauba wax is a vegetable product, and it's really safe to eat. The pharmaceutical industry uses it to coat tablets and pills with, and so we've all had an opportunity at some time to probably to eat some of this carnauba wax. The other thing that's in the buffing kit is this aluminum adapter. Now this is what you attach to your motor to fit the buffs in. On one end is a thread that the buffs will screw into. On the other end is a hole and a couple of set screws. Now the way this works, this slides onto your motor shaft. If you have a 5/8 motor shaft, it goes right on here. If you have a motor that's a little bit smaller, this is an adapter that comes with it, and the adapter goes in there, and you can knock it down in there with a hammer, and then it will fit a 1/2-inch shaft. And the kinds of motors that we use, fractional horsepower motors, come mostly in 5/8 and 1/2-inch shafts. Now I'm going to go over here to my motor. This particular motor is a 1/2-horse motor, and that's a nice size to be using for your buffer. You want a motor that's 1725 RPM, that's a low-speed motor, and you also want one that rotates counterclockwise. And the reason you want it to rotate counterclockwise is if you put a buff on there and it's spinning and you're buffing something and you happen to let go of whatever it is you're buffing, if it were turning the other way, it would throw it up in your face, which would definitely not be good. If you let go of it in the normal way, it'll throw it on the floor, which might damage your part, but it's going to save your face. While we're talking about those things, we probably should mention something about safety. Of course, we recommend that you always use safety glasses for whatever you do. I'm not using them for this video because it's a little hard for me to see through these while I'm talking. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to talk and see at the same time. And the other thing that you want to use, particularly if you're doing a lot of buffing, is a little face mask, because although this material is not terribly hazardous, the Tripoli is an abrasive compound, and it would not be good for you if you got too much of it in your lungs. Now I'm going to show you something that needs to be done to these buffs before you use them. This buff here happens to be the white diamond buff. And when you first start using your buffs, they're going to be pretty dirty. You'll get a lot of fuzz. You can see some of that fuzz flying off there right now. It's lint and little strings that come off of the cloth. If before you use the buff, that is to say before you put any compound on it, if you take some coarse sandpaper, which is what I've got here, I've got some 80 grit sandpaper, I've got my shop vac, and what I'm going to do is hold my shop vac down here underneath the buff, and then with this sandpaper I'm going to clean this buff off just as much as I can to take some of these strings and lint off. If you don't do this, the first few weeks that you use your buff, you're going to get a lot of lint and dust in your shop. And I know everybody is particular about how clean and nice they keep their shop. Everybody wants to be able to eat off the floor, and that's of course the way I keep mine. So I always take all of my buffs when I set up or break in a new pair or set and sand them like this to get as much of the dirt out of them as I can. Okay, now we're going to have a little demonstration of buffing. I've got several things here that I want to show you how much they change when you use our buffing system. I've got my Tripoli wheel here, and this one has already been broken in and used just a little bit. As you can see, it's red, and that's because it's got Tripoli compound in it. So I'm going to put this on my buffer and put a little bit more Tripoli on, just like that. You can't really put too much Tripoli on. That's the compound that does the work, and you need quite a bit of it on there. Now I've got a piece of curly maple here. This has been sanded to 220 on a belt sander, and there's no other kind of finish on it. So I'm going to go ahead and buff that up a little bit with the Tripoli. And I won't buff the whole thing so you can get some comparison, but you can see already it's really started to shine up nicely. It's a little hard to see exactly where the highlights are in here. I hold this in the camera so you get reflection from the lights. But there you see this end is shined and this end has not been. Now we're not putting any finish at all on this wood. We're just polishing it. That's all the process is. It's just polishing the wood. I'm going to take another piece before I change into the other, change wheels. Now this is a piece of a pen blank. A lot of pen turners like the buff because it does such a nice job on pens. This blank was something I made with the old lathe wizard, a product that we used to make that would cut spirals, and unfortunately we sold them all. They're all gone, and I decided not to make any more, primarily because they were a lot of work and I wasn't making any money. So anyway, I'm going to buff this up too, and then I'm going to change to my white diamond wheel and go into the next step. All right, now if you can see this, it's started to shine up pretty nicely. I'll do a piece of dark material too. I've got some cocobolo here, and we'll do a little of that just to show you the difference. This works on any kind of wood. It'll also work on plastic and acrylic. And there's the cocobolo.